Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com. Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Good morning. Welcome to Vecinos. Today, I may have 3 guests. For sure, I have 2 guests who will be talking about the La Jolla History Center and a wonderful exhibit that is there. My first guest is Heath Fox, the director of the La Jolla Cultural Center. Is that correct, or is it the History Center?
It's the La Jolla Historical Society.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. I knew I had it wrong. And Rebecca Morales, who is co-creator, curator for this exhibit. If you have not visited the exhibit, I strongly recommend you take an hour of your time and go see it. It's worth every minute you're there. Welcome.
Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you.
Same here.
Rebecca, glad you're there.
Yes.
Let's start with how you guys ended up where you're working, what you do, a little bit about your background. You want to go for it first, Heath?
Okay, sure. So I grew up on the East Coast in Virginia, and my story is not an uncommon one. I came to San Diego through the military. So I was a 20-year Marine officer, and that brought me out here. And after I retired from service, I stayed with my family, and I stayed out here. And I transitioned into leadership roles in the arts and culture sector. So I worked at a couple of museums in Balboa Park for a while, the Museum of Photographic Arts and the San Diego Museum of Art. Then I was the assistant dean of Arts and Humanities at the University of California, San Diego, and I have been the executive director at the La Jolla Historical Society now for the past 5.5 years or so.
Rebecca, what about you?
Yes, I'm a native San Diegan. I lived in Logan Heights till I was 4 years old, and then family moved to La Jolla. Actually, to what was the barrio of La Jolla at that time. I went to La Jolla Elementary School and La Jolla High School, and then left for college and went to UC Berkeley, where I studied architecture, and UCLA, where I was in urban planning, and at MIT, where I received my PhD in urban and regional planning. And I taught for many years in economic development, industrial development, and community development, and wrote several books or co-authored, co-edited several books on Latinos in the United States, Borderless Borders, looking at Latinos in Latin America and the United States, and had an enduring interest in Latinos. When I left academia and came back home to La Jolla, I continued to look at issues affecting Latinos, and was absolutely thrilled when I had an opportunity to work on this exhibit that would bring me back to my home and look at Mexicans in La Jolla, in Logan Heights, and in other parts of San Diego, and to see the context in which I grew up, and to have a better understanding of it by doing this exhibit.
Heath, my first question to you really is, how did this exhibit, I mean, it's a kind of an unlikely place if you think about it, La Jolla, and an exhibit on Mexicans and Chicanos. Tell us how this came to be.
Okay, well, let's start with the philosophy at the La Jolla Historical Society. You know, we view history as not just in the geographic confines of La Jolla, but we think about La Jolla as part of the city of San Diego, the county of San Diego, the region of Southern California. So we think about it in that context, and we think about history as not just reporting the past, but history as a continuum, as past, present, and future. So we wanted to address historical events, people, issues from the past, but also in ways that are relatable to the community today and have meaning for society, contemporary society, and are relevant for the future as well. So this particular project really started with a conversation that Natasha Elcombe and I had. She's the other co-curator. And we just sat down and started discussing what we might do within that kind of overall curatorial strategy for the community. And she said, there are stories that were important in the Mexican American and Latino community kind of throughout the 20th century. But these stories might be partially known, or people might know the results of some of these stories, but the full stories have kind of been lost along the way. And it would be great to have a project to bring these stories back and inject new information and perspective and insight into issues that are relevant in the community today. And so that's how this started. And the exhibition is built around 5 core stories that fall into that category. And so that's how we developed it.
Okay. Rebecca, what brought you aboard, and who brought you aboard, and how did you become involved?
Natasha asked me to join her. I have known Natasha for a number of years. Natasha's father is now deceased. That's Frank Bonilla, and he is someone who is well known in Latino scholarship. He started the first Puerto Rican Center in the United States and was one of the co-founders of the International Inter-University Program on Latino Research. And I would write with him extensively and work with him on research that involved Latinos. So I've known Natasha through her father for some time. And when she had this opportunity to do this work, she knew that I was in San Diego, and she invited me to participate. Well, I've also known Heath in the La Jolla Historical Society because of growing up in La Jolla and enjoying the La Jolla Historical Society immensely. The stories that we tell, there are 5 of them, but they overlap to some extent, and I think that there may be a sense that La Jolla would be an unlikely place to tell stories about Latinos, but in fact, there was quite a bit of interaction among Latinos in La Jolla and Logan Heights and other parts of San Diego. So we're capturing some of that interaction, some of that movement, and the ways in which different parts of San Diego affected each other. There's also a sense that there was isolation of Latinos in La Jolla for a period of time because La Jolla in general was isolated from San Diego. So some of the minorities, the blacks, Latinos, Filipinos, others who came to La Jolla to work in a service capacity initially lived there and worked in that capacity. But as we got freeways and as communities opened up and it was easier for people to move and live in different parts of the city and county, we saw that population dispersed. But La Jolla is like a microcosm of other communities because it was isolated for a while, but then opened up.
I'm going to go off track just for a minute from the exhibit. You said you grew up in La Jolla. What was it like growing up as a Latina in La Jolla?
There weren't very many of us. Most of the Mexicans knew each other. There were a few Cubans who were very, people were very distinct. You knew who was Cuban, you knew who was Costa Rican, you knew who was Mexican. People were very different. People came from different backgrounds. There was more of the Mexicans were service workers than the other Latin Americans, they're Latinos. in La Jolla High School, La Jolla Elementary School, and in some of the institutions like the churches, there was a very subtle institutional racism that was pervasive throughout society. And people didn't think about it. We accepted it. It wasn't until the 60s when I went to school to Berkeley, and that's when the social movements became very prominent, that I began to understand the situation that I grew up in. It was not uncommon to hear racial slurs. It was not uncommon for me to feel like there were people that I did not have access to. But again, that was the period of time that I grew up in. And we were like in the forefront of some of the social movements. There were not people in higher positions very often that we could use as role models. There was the Spanish teacher in La Jolla High School, who was a man, but there were no like women who we would see in a leadership context who were Latina.
Okay, we're going to go to commercial in a minute, and then we will come back and talk about the process for this exhibit, the beautiful artwork that goes with it, or the photographs, I guess, more than artwork, and just kind of walk you through the exhibit, because I think if you haven't been there, we need to tempt you to get there. Okay, we'll be back in a minute, and thank you for being here, both of you. I really appreciate this.
It's great fun.
Oh, good. I'm glad you're having fun.
Thank you.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
The richness of your life is reflected in the shimmering elegance found at Diolun Design. One-of-a-kind jewelry and pieces from Cynthia Dillon in silver and gold help to express your unique personality. The flowing designs of her creations will empower the way you move throughout your day. Join us online at DIOLUNdesigns.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
One person has the power to change the world, impact millions of lives, and leave a legacy for lifetimes to come. That person is you. In the New York Times bestseller, What is Your What? Steve Olsher, award-winning author and founder of the Reinvention Workshop, reveals his proven process that has helped thousands of men and women discover, share, and monetize the one thing they were born to do. Grab your free copy now at www.whatisyourwhat.com/free. That's www.whatisyourwhat.com/free.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McCullough brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome back to Vecinos. Today we're talking about an exhibit at the La Jolla Historical Society. The name of the exhibit is In Plain Sight, Mexican Chicano site.
Mexicano Chicano Stories in San Diego.
Thank you. I couldn't remember that last part. I knew it was in San Diego. You had something you wanted to add.
Yeah,
please.
I wanted to go back to a theme that Rebecca spoke about a couple minutes ago on the overlaps in this exhibition. So it's built on these 5 core stories. There's some supplementary material that go along with that. But the interesting thing about it is some of those stories are more directly related to La Jolla, and some of those stories are in other different parts of San Diego. Some of them have local importance, and some of them have national importance. And there are woven into these stories military experiences of individuals from the community where they served, in this case during World War II, in these 2 stories. So there's a number of different ways in which these stories overlap, which is a very interesting aspect to the show.
Okay, so now you've talked about it. You decided you're going to do the exhibit. What were the next steps?
Well, Rebecca and Natasha developed what those stories were going to be, and where to get the information about it. You know, at the end of the day, you got to have something to hang on the walls when you do an exhibition in a museum. And so they reached out to the families, to the individuals or the descendants, the children, the nephews, the nieces, the brothers and sisters of the individuals that were involved for information, and had a great deal of cooperation from those families in the development of this show. And those families provided not only information, but in some cases they provided photographs or other documentary material that was important to developing the narratives of the show. Also, that we had resources of our own. We have an archival collection at the La Jolla Historical Society. It consists of among other things, over 20,000 photographs from different periods in La Jolla and some San Diego history. And so we were able to draw on those resources. And then a very interesting aspect, which the curators came up with, is to inject into the exhibition 3 contemporary artists, 2 Latinos and a Latina, all practicing today, and ask them to kind of tattoo one of the stories and do a contemporary art piece to respond to that. And 2 of them did videos, as a matter of fact, which are in the exhibition, and one of them did a print and sculptural display, which is quite fascinating. So there's lots of layers and dimension to this exhibition.
Rebecca, would you like to walk us through what some of your role was?
Well, I was involved in writing up 2 of the stories. They were 2 stories that required a considerable amount of research. Natasha did 3 of the stories, and I also did some of the sidebars. Just to go through some of the stories then. The first one was the Lemon Grove incident and Roberto Alvarez. And this is a story about in the 1930s when Mexican students were barred from going to school in Lemon Grove. It was a time when there was a considerable amount of prejudice against Mexicans. People felt that they needed to be Americanized before they could mix with white American students. And through the lawsuit that ensued, the judge ruled in favor of the Mexican community and said that, in fact, Mexicans were white and could go to school. So it was the first important suit against racial discrimination against Mexican students in the United States. The second story is about Pottery Canyon in La Jolla and the story of Cornelio Rodriguez, who was a skilled potter who came from Mexico and established a pottery business in La Jolla in Pottery Canyon, which is an area between UCSD and the town of La Jolla. And the skills that he brought from Mexico were just beautiful. His pots were handmade, and they were just beautiful, but it was incongruent with the community as it was growing up around him that became a very expensive neighborhood. And so it was ultimately a story of gentrification and the loss of the skill because of the economic push to get this family out, and the loss of the trade that existed with this, even though there's the remnants of one of the kilns that is falling apart. There is a historic park that's left there in commemoration of the Pottery Canyon, but it is something that we've lost, and then the lifestyle that was associated with that is also lost.
Rebecca, may I interject for a minute? I have now visited Pottery Canyon twice. And
okay.
The kill is definitely deteriorating. And
yes.
I'm making a plea to the City Council, to anyone who is interested in preserving history, that something be done with that kill. It is on my understanding that it's on private property.
Correct.
I can't imagine us not saving it. If nothing else, if the people would agree to put a little path to it and a glass case around it, something that would preserve it for the future.
And I'd like to jump in there, too. We at the Historical Society would also like to see that kiln saved. And one option that we would like to see pursued is, as you say, the kiln has been deteriorated, so it needs to be deconstructed, and any of the hazardous materials that might be associated with it need to be taken care of properly. But we would really like to see the kiln moved and rebuilt on Pottery Canyon Park, so it is on the public land and available for everybody to see.
Rebecca, do you want to put your 5 cents in about saving it?
Oh, absolutely. I think it's critical. It's been so difficult. However, there's been several efforts, and I think renewing these efforts is important. If we're going to save the kiln at all, we have to do it now because we are losing it very fast. And it's a unique kiln. It was a kiln that was brought from Mexico into the United States. Certain skilled potters knew how to use this kiln, but it has a long historical context of going back to the Mediterranean. So, yes, definitely, I believe that we should do everything we can to preserve the kiln.
Okay.
Should I go on with the stories?
Please.
Okay, the next story is a World War II story, and it has to do with the Office of Censorship and Priscilla Yanez. And Priscilla actually was my aunt. And we knew in the family that Priscilla had been involved in something very special. She was listed by a particular person who made a list of spies in the United States during World War II, and she was named as a spy. It depends on how you look at the Office of Censorship. But it was... it's a story in which we look at something that a lot of people did not realize was even going on, and that was intelligence and the people who were listening in to conversations within Mexico and between Mexico and the United States, because there was a considerable scare about possible Germans coming in through Mexico or Japanese coming in from the West Coast.
Infiltration across the southern border. Sound familiar?
Yeah. Yes.
and especially since San Diego was such an important port as well. But there's the women who were engaged in intelligence jobs were never recognized, and most of the people who were involved in this operation, the secret operation, were never recognized for their work. Most of them were Latinas. And there's been very little scholarship done on what they actually uncovered. So we were able to just scratch the surface, to begin to open up this idea that there were Latinos in intelligence, there were women in intelligence, and now we would love to see more work done, more scholarship done on this to find out the depth in which they were involved. And of course, these women were civilians, and they were overseen by people in the military, but they were never given military credit. They were civil service. Then the next person that we looked at was Ramon Ruiz, who was a founding member of the UC San Diego History Department and contributor to the development of the Hispanic Studies program. He was actually born in Pacific Beach and grew up in La Jolla. And during his lifetime, he authored more than a dozen books. And for his work, he received in 1998 the prestigious National Humanities Medal, which honors individuals or groups whose work has deepened the nation's understanding of the humanities. He was awarded this.
Rebecca, hang on. We're going to commercial, so I'm sorry. Hang on just for a few more minutes, and then we'll continue this conversation.
Tired of presentations with no impact, no inspiration, and no traction? Do dull speakers have you and your team disengaged and distracted by smartphones? Christopher McAuliffe brings energy, insights, and 2 decades of experience, delivered with punch, humor, and heart. Your team will leave energized, uplifted, and with a sense of purpose. Visit ChristopherMcAuliffe.com to bring some heat to your next speaking engagement. McAuliffe. ChristopherMcAuliffe.com.
Take a break from politics. Tune in and learn something. WS Radio shows are worth your time and are filled with tips and advice. Add us to your lunch routine, and we'll give you a meal for your mind.
I raised $8,000 to build schools for South African children. After realizing how many people go hungry in San Diego, I now volunteer at a food pantry.
I'm spending the next year doing volunteer projects across 3 countries and helping in ways they designate to be the most helpful.
The World Link program at the Joan B. Kroc Institute for Peace and Justice recognizes the potential of youth as agents of social change. Learn how you can help youth become a generation of leaders in action at peace.sandiego.edu.
Attention business owners. If you feel like your business owns you and want to grow your company and get your life back, then get the Scale Toolkit at scaleyourbusnesstoolkit.com. Created by Wall Street Journal bestselling author David Finkel and Priceline.com co-founder Jeff Hoffman, this free collection of 36 videos and PDF tools will help you build a business, not a job. Go to scaleyourbusnesstoolkit.com today and learn how to work less by getting your business to produce more.
Small businesses are the lifeblood of America's economy. Every Thursday, SBA Radio interviews industry professionals and is dedicated to provide small businesses with timely insights and innovations. Visit www.sbaradio.us for details.
If you heard that sound, you probably are eligible for insurance from Navy Mutual, insuring the men and women of the Navy, Marines, and Coast Guard. Here's what one policyholder, retired Navy Commander Thomas Dade, had to say.
Navy Mutual is the best insurance decision I ever made. I wish you had a savings plan available that earned the rates my Navy Mutual insurance has been earning.
Navy Mutual Aid Association, started by military members in 1879, serves active, reserve, and retired military today. Navy Mutual honors our military by providing them affordable life insurance with the features they need without fine print, sales fees, or military service restrictions. Value, integrity, trust, and stability are the cornerstones on which our commitment to you and your loved ones are built. Call Navy Mutual at 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org for your personal life insurance plan consultation. 1-800-628-6011 or NavyMutual.org. Navy Mutual, insuring those who serve.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to the Cinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
You're listening to WSRadio.com, worldwide leader in internet talk show. Our program is Vecinos, and we are talking about an exhibition that's going on at the La Jolla Historical Society. Rebecca Morales was speaking, but I'm going to ask, he said he had something he wanted to interject, so I'm going to let him interject it, and then we'll go back to the other people, to Rebecca.
Well, Rebecca did a wonderful job recounting the story of Dr. Ramon Ruiz, and I just wanted to say, although his most important contribution to society was his work as a historian, professor at UCSD, and winner of the National Humanities Medal. Another important aspect to his life was his service in World War II. And he was an aviator. He flew for the Army Air Corps. He was an officer. And that was very unusual for that time for a Mexican or a Mexican-American to be made an officer. As you know, there were a lot of members of that community that served in the enlisted ranks during the Second World War, but unusual to find an officer, and he was one of them.
And the most decorated ethnic group during World War II.
That's correct, yes.
That's correct.
Okay. Rebecca, please continue.
Sure. The last story has to do with Chicano Park and Josie Talamantes, who was one of the founders. She was on the steering committee to establish and preserve the park. And you know, the park is located under the Coronado Bridge. The bridge was tore apart. The freeways tore apart our community, and when there was an attempt to put in, I believe it was a police station.
Highway Patrol Station.
Highway Patrol, there we go. Underneath the park, and continued to tear apart the community. That was enough. That's when people said that's enough. And it was during the period of widespread social and political activism in the U.S. of the 60s and 70s. And Chicano Park became known for its beautiful murals that depicted history of Aztlán, which is the name used by Chicanos for the mythical community that grew up in the Southwest, of the struggles both in Mexico and the United States. And they were painted by artists here who captured the mood of the community, and it was an opportunity to see how the people were taking control of their own community. And in fact, because of their voice, of their willingness to resist that facility, the government facility was not put in there. Instead, the park was created, and that park, through the efforts of Josie Talamantes, was designated as on the Register of Historic Places 2015.
Josie, there is no doubt Josie has done a tremendous job of preserving history with the park. As someone who was there when it was occupied, I'd like to say a couple of things. One is, I think the park is more than a park. It gave the community a sense that they had a voice. The power that came out of that park was more than the actual park itself. It was letting the community know, if we unite, we can do something. To me, that's one of the biggest and most important things about that time. And also, which are not been mentioned very often, is the group of señoras who cooked every day for those people that were in the park. There was a group of, I can probably name them all, of about 5 or 6 women who would fix food every day for the people that were working, planting plants in the park and doing various things. And they kind of go unrecognized, even though everyone knows they were there and appreciates their time. Okay, Rebecca, continue, please.
Well, what you said is very important because it's the same thing that came out of the Lemon Grove incident. That is, because the families resisted, because they spoke up, and at the time, nobody expected the parents of the kids to actually say, no, we're not going to do this, we're not going to stand for this. But they did, and because of that, they were able to have this successful lawsuit. And the same is true for Chicano Park because they stood up for themselves. And they came out with something beautiful, something better in the end. And each of these stories tell us that. They tell us about the successes. Now, in the case of Pottery Canyon, it's not exactly that. That tells us about things that were lost when we weren't careful, when we allowed something beautiful to fall through the cracks. In addition to these 5 stories, which we augment with photos, with pottery, with the medal that Ramon Ruiz was awarded, there's the work by the 3 artists that Heath mentioned, Noe Olivas, Claudia Cano, and
Omar Lopez.
Yeah. And there was also involvement by youth students from San Pasqual Academy and Hoover High School through Outside the Lens, a photo education nonprofit group. They had the students watch the film about the Lemon Grove incident. That it's a documentary by Paul Espinosa, and asked them to give their interpretation of what they saw and how it was relevant to their lives today. So we had these beautiful commentaries, photographic commentaries by the students that also contributed to this exhibit.
And I wanted to mention, Rebecca spoke about the fact that Chicano Park is now historically registered, and through Josie Talamenta's effort. And it's on the National Register of Historic Places. It is also a National Historic Landmark. And that's significant because National Historic Landmarks only constitute about 10% of those properties listed on the National Register of Historic Places. So it's a higher level recognition. And it's very important because of all of the National Historic Landmarks in the United States, less than 1% are associated with Latino history. And so it's a very, very significant designation from that aspect. You know, when we started this project, the first thing we talked about was not necessarily historic preservation issues. And we're a preservation organization. We are advisors to the City of San Diego on historic properties in La Jolla. But we didn't start out with that, and yet 2 of the stories went there. Pottery Canyon is designated at the city level, and Chicano Park is designated as at the national level and a National Historic Landmark. So it was another interesting aspect of the layering and the overlap and the correlations that we spoke of.
Something I never thought I'd see is the tour buses coming to Chicano Park, and I go to the park whenever I have company, or when I feel like it, and I'm in and out of the park. But to watch the tour buses come in and show Chicano Park, it's a funny feeling of pride, and just they are looking at our community, and they come in regularly, as well as student groups been given tours. The Chicano Park Steering Committee is very good about providing someone that will give you a tour.
Yeah, that's great.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we have about 2 minutes left, so let's talk anything that you haven't said about the exhibit, either one of you, because then we're going to talk about the future afterwards.
Rebecca?
Well, we do have a couple of sidebars that are interesting. Some discussion about restrictive covenants. There's a sense in La Jolla that restrictive covenants only affected the Jewish community, and that was primarily located in La Jolla. But in fact, restrictive covenants were practiced all over San Diego and affected all minorities. and did have an effect on where Mexicans lived initially, although it wasn't as prominent, it didn't factor in as prominently in affecting Mexicans in La Jolla. It did affect Mexicans in general. And we have some discussion about the making of a working class community in La Jolla. How did this barrio come about? Why was it located where it was? And we talk about the role of tennis in bringing promising young tennis players from Logan Heights to La Jolla, and how that helped launch their careers and their prominence and ability to move on with tennis scholarships into higher education.
I want to say a little bit about the covenants. I know in the early 50s, Latinos could not own a home in North Park. And to my knowledge, Mrs. Valladolid, David Valladolid's mother, was the first person to move in to North Park under that, because she was a single mom working and did not want to leave her kids all day in just any neighborhood. So she pushed the real estate man, this is where I want my home. So I think that really says a lot.
So I would just add, I would encourage your listeners to come and see this exhibition. It is layered with really interesting information and stories, and it's rich in content and interpretation. We've had a great response from the local community on this, local being all of San Diego, and our museum.
We'll be back in a minute, and we'll go into the hours and the times and everything.
On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, CEO and founder of VinVillage.com and the Wine and Dine Show on Vin Village Radio. Do you have a wine, event, product, or service to promote? Then contact VinVillage.com to reach thousands of wine lovers across the country. VinVillage connects like-minded wine enthusiasts with unique and exclusive wines, events, products, and services. To learn more, contact us on VinVillage.com. VinVillage is where wine lovers connect.
You've heard me talking about Progressive Medical Center. They have helped me feel my best. And Dr. Goli, tell us a little bit about integrative medicine. Why is that such a big deal at Progressive Medical Center, and how can that make me feel better?
Integrative medicine is just good medicine. It's combining the best of traditional medicine, nutritional medicine, natural medicine, and really helping the patient get to the root cause so they can take control of their health and really make an impact to improve not only their energy, their vitality, and just their overall outlook on their health and their life.
I procrastinated for a long time before I finally made an appointment. So why should someone not delay and go ahead and get set up and come see you guys?
Any journey begins with that first step, and that first step means making a decision to recognize that there's something wrong with you. Whether you have fatigue, inappropriate weight gain, not sleeping well, not concentrating, all of these issues, you can get to the root cause.
So many of us here at The Fish have gotten help from Progressive Medical Center. So why don't you find out more from them today? Go to progressivemedicalcenter.com.
This is your life. Live it well.
You take your smartphone almost everywhere you go. Now WSRadio.com can be there too. Search WS Radio in the Play Store for your Android devices or iTunes for Apple and download the WS Radio application. WSRadio.com on your phone and in your ear everywhere you go. Download the WS Radio application. Do it now. It's very easy. WSRadio.com.
Attention business owners. Does it feel like your business owns you? See if you qualify for a free 90-minute business coaching session. to help you build a business, not a job. During this free 90-minute strategic consultation, one of our senior coaches will help you map out the best way to grow your company and get your life back. To learn more, go to MauiMasterminds.com/scale now. That's MauiMasterminds.com/scale now.
Talk to me.
Information, news, and entertainment on demand.
WSRadio.com.
Welcome, neighbors, to Vecinos with your host, Maria Garcia.
Welcome back to Vecinos. You're listening to WSRadio.com, the worldwide leader in Internet talk. And my guests today, both Rebecca and Heath, have been talking about a wonderful exhibit at the La Jolla Historical Society. I'm going to ask them to sum up what they want to share about the exhibit and anything they feel is important right now.
Well, it's just a wonderful exhibition, and Natasha and Rebecca, the co-curators of the project, did a terrific job pulling this information together, and it's just a delightful exhibition to be engaged with. It's at the La Jolla Historical Society at 780 Prospect Street in La Jolla. It'll be up through May the 20th. We are open Wednesday through Sunday from 12 noon to 4 p.m. So we want to invite all your guests to come out and see the show. It's free. You don't have to pay anything for admission to come in.
I also wanted to add one little thing before we go to Rebecca. Rebecca mentioned Paul Espinosa doing a documentary on Chicano Park. This weekend at the Latino Film Festival, Paul's movie on Chunky Sanchez will open. I think it's sold out both Saturday and Sunday, but there will be other times to view it. And I recommend that you take a minute and attend whichever movie you can. The Latino Film Festival at the AMC at Fashion Valley. Rebecca, what would you like to add?
The exhibit has had just fantastic responses. We're now looking to see if there are other organizations that might be interested in showing it after it closes at the Historical Society. There is the possibility that it might go to City Hall. There might be some community colleges or libraries that might be interested. But we would really like to see this have legs and to be shown in other parts of San Diego. It has so much relevance. It's something that I think everyone, whether they're Latino or not, would appreciate seeing.
I really urge City Hall to consider it, and Southwestern College, if you're listening, think about this. Okay, go ahead. Let's talk about what's coming along, and what can we look forward to in the future.
Well, specific to your audience here, I want to mention a show. It's not for a couple of years yet. It's down the road. But it's called Tijuana 1964. And there is a gentleman who lives in La Jolla named Harry Crosby. He has lived in La Jolla since the 1930s when his family brought him here as a young man. He was an educator, a writer, an author, and a photographer. And he did some very important both photographic work and history work on the history of Baja California. And in 1964, he was commissioned to do photojournalism in the city of Tijuana. So he was sent there, and he photographed people in conversation on the sidewalk. He photographed people doing business in the shops and people in the public parks and people going to church. And so it was just this kind of survey of life in Tijuana in 1964, and it was published as a book. I think there were about 65 or 70 photographs in the book from a much larger body of photographs that he actually took. And that book was republished in 2014 on its 50th anniversary. Again, same title, Tijuana 1964. Paul Ganster at San Diego State University was instrumental in this, and SDSU actually did the republication. So we're just in the beginning planning stages of an exhibition of these photographs in a show that's going to be called Tijuana 1964.
And I'll give you a name that you might want to contact afterwards.
Okay, great.
Rebecca, what would you like us to know?
I would like people to know that your book, La Neighbor, was very instrumental in helping us think about some of these issues. I really appreciate that. It was very hard to do some of this research when we went to various locations where we thought there'd be considerable photos or historical documents regarding Mexicans, Latinos in San Diego. They just don't exist. I think that right now we really need to be looking to our community and asking people to produce all the material they have on their families, background, whatever they know, because we couldn't find it. The military history was hard to uncover. History of the working class community was very hard to uncover. There's just a paucity of information, and we just need to reclaim our history.
And I'm working on a new book, and my plea is the same as yours. Find, all the canneries we had in San Diego, I don't know where all that material went. You find individual families with pictures of their family members that worked at the cannery. Thank you, Carlos. Look at it. But you do not find a library of what happened in the canneries. And that's such a crucial part of our history. And
I have some photos from that period, too. Some of my family members worked in the canneries.
I will be contacting you about that. Thank you so much for the plug for the book. The book is done very well. And
we've sold out twice in the galleries.
That's great. What I think proudest of is that the people told their stories. I think they were surprised that somebody wanted to listen to their stories. But the nicest part is the grandchildren and nieces and nephews have said, I didn't know that about my nana or my tata. Having shared those stories was so important.
Right.
Okay.
We don't want to lose them.
No, we don't. And there's so much. We only have about 2.5 minutes left. This is your chance to talk a little bit more, either one of you, about future exhibits.
Well, immediately coming up this year, this summer, we have a show called La Jolla Canyons, Place, Diversity, and Connections. So this is a show that's, we run across academic disciplines in our programming, and this is a show that's kind of oriented towards natural history and the importance of the canyons to the geography, to urban development, to issues of the watershed, to issues of fire management and plant life, animal life, and the like. And then I want to mention a show particularly early next year that's called Tangible Memories, Recollections of Early La Jolla Women, and La Jolla Women Pioneers, this is a show we've commissioned 10 artists to each research a woman from the early period of La Jolla's development. Back before World War I, the civic and cultural life of La Jolla was really run by a group of women, Ellen Browning Scripps and her circle of friends and associates. And so we have information on these women. So we're commissioning these 10 artists each to pick a woman off of the list and learn and understand about her and create a new work of art in response to her life. And all of the contemporary artists are all women. So it's going to be a very interesting project.
Rebecca, what is your newest project?
Well, my project that I'm working on that's actually from the heart is a suspense novel with a Latina as protagonist. So that is something that's consuming me at the moment. But one of the things that happened in doing this work is that it's really inspired my family to begin to consider writing their own biography, the history of the Morales family, because it's a very interesting and colorful history of the people who came out of Mexico and moved here, and things like the fact that my grandfather, my father's side, was a railroad foreman at a time when that was very highly unusual for a Mexican to be a railroad foreman, and what it was like to work on the railroad. that he became a Protestant missionary. That
our time is up. I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
So many more stories. Thank you both so very much for being here.
It's been a great pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
A podcast or radio show on WS Radio is a great way to create content marketing. Turn prospects into customers into raving fans. Contact Wade at WSRadio.com or call 866-WS-RADIO.
Kinja Dixon was crowned the #1 sales executive through hard work, deep thinking, and the revelation of universal talk laws. He now wants to share these lessons with you. Universal talk laws are what you need to know and use in business and at home to have successful and effective conversations. Kinja Dixon shares his wisdom, action plans, and wealth. Each book comes with a chance to win $10,000. Find Universal Talk Laws at KinjaDixon.com. On the internet, your business's reputation can be unjustly destroyed in an instant. Don't wait for that to happen. Building and marketing your 5-star reputation can increase your business by as much as 19%. Take control of your reputation and have the 5-star reputation you deserve with Reputation Marketing Solutions by DSI Development. Become the go-to company by visiting 5starrepmarketing.com. The number 5starrepmarketing.com.
Hi, Scale listener. This is David Finkel, co-host with Jeff Hoffman of Scale Your Business. I wanted to let you know that our newest book, Scale, was just released and to encourage you to get your copy. The book will give you 7 proven principles to grow your business and get your life back. If you've ever wanted to grow your business, but held yourself back from fear that it would take over your life, then we urge you to get your copy of Scale today. It'll give you a proven roadmap for rapidly growing your business while also gaining more personal freedom. Scale will help you work less by getting your business to produce more. Scale is for every entrepreneur who ever wondered if they really own their business or if their business owns them. Get your copy online or at your local bookseller. For more information, visit us online at scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com. That's scaleyourbusinesstoolkit.com.
Controversy and conversation to upset the status quo. A no-holds-barred exploration and obliteration of the limits of possibility. Join me, Steve Olsher, and my rambunctious crew on Reinvention Radio, where each week we scour the planet to bring you the world's foremost social, business, political, technology, and scientific disruptors who challenge the accepted and forge daring, cutting-edge paths. That's Reinvention Radio, where normal comes to die and mediocrity meets its final demise.
Hi, this is Rob Barnett, VinVillage.com, where wine lovers connect. Be sure to tune in weekly to Vin Village Radio for exclusive, in-depth interviews with the who's who in wine and food.